Please welcome the incredible Cassandra Britton.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome to the show, my fellow tall Canadian gal.
That's me. We're here doing it.
And you know how to play some hockey, I hear.
I do. Probably over 20 years playing competitive hockey. So,
wow. So how did you feel about the women's league? Like that must be
exciting. Super exciting. Yeah. A couple of the girls that play, I played with most of my life. So it's actually it's a really beautiful moment to see them like stick with their dreams and go all the way. And now we have our first female coach in the NHL. So a lot of exciting things happening. Yeah.
What's her name? Michelle, is it?
I'm not sure. Yeah. I don't remember her name.
She is also badass. Man, being like the first woman in anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you spend part-time in Texas and Canada.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I try to split my time up. I mean, Austin is my heart, and I'm sure we'll get into the story of what brought me down there. But half the time I'm back here in Canada and Toronto because I still have a business that runs here. Then living the dream down in Austin. So
love it. I love Austin. My only real authentic cowboy boots are from there, and I got like the custom steel toe hammered on. They're like a dark navy blue, almost look black. And I got them when I was at South by Southwest.
Yeah.
So I've only really ever been to Austin when I was pregnant.
Ooh.
I know. Actually, my favorite experiences going to Vegas and Austin was when I was pregnant.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah, there's no pressure to go out. There's for some reason people are obsessed with pregnant women and want to take care of you. So I got treated like queen.
We love this. You deserve it. Yeah. And
Austin has great barbecue. And
amazing
food. Donuts too.
Amazing food. All things coffee, all things entrepreneurs and vibes. It's a vibe.
Well, how do you stay thin and healthy living in Austin?
Super active community. It's actually hard not to. Like half the things that you get invited out to do are all fitness related.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, movement every day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I run multiple businesses. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm an international keynote speaker. I run my own podcast, the Business Savage podcast, but predominantly I help CEOs, industry leaders, and entrepreneurs bring their voice to the world, get their faces on camera, and build a legacy brand. So I work with all kinds of different entrepreneurs at all different levels. I run a mastermind community of female entrepreneurs, and then I work with some high-level CEOs, really helping them tap into the power of their voice.
So you recently worked with Mark Bradley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're still working together.
Okay, because I did his PR strategy for him months ago.
Amazing.
He's the sweetest man.
He is. Yeah. Super sweet. It's been really fun with a man at that caliber and at that level with all of the incredible things that he's accomplished. Mm-hmm. And then watching him get on camera and I'm like, oh, this is where I shine. Like, this is where I get to come in and help you. It's been a lot of fun.
So what was some of the stuff you did with him?
Yeah, so we're working on building his brand. We're building his social media strategy, getting his voice on camera, and taking a message, as you probably know, so many of us will kind of ramble on, and taking a message that he has that is super powerful and putting into a format that has the potential to do really well on social media and go viral and really understand the heartbeat of who he is and what he does and how that's going to connect with a bigger audience.
Man, that is so hard. Like finding that message, because we often think I have a million things to say, but then when the video is actually recording, we're like, I got nothing to say. Yeah. You have to get like all this wisdom and experience into like a couple succinct messages.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So how do you do that?
Listening. I listen. Okay. So first of all, I'll never work with someone that I don't believe in their mission because I have to believe in it for me to actually care about helping them tell it. So really diving deep into listening to him, to his passion, to what he's building, to what he's creating. And then I hear a lot of the ums, the ahs, the long drawn out stories. I feel like one of my secret sauces and like little personal powers is being able to take the golden nuggets out of that story, that long-winded story, and say, okay, we're going to say that. That's the hook. We're going to say this because that's a concise way of giving that message. And then I need you to leave it with some kind of action or some kind of step that they're going to take. And just helping him to understand how my brain is working through that process so that he's learning in the process.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm in this interesting transition in my career right now. And a woman on LinkedIn reached out and said, I'd love to help you with your content on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, well, this business there's a transition happening here. And I just don't think I have the content for it. And she's like, no, people love the journey. They want to actually know like what is happening in your life and how are you learning from this? So we all have the story. We all have the content within us, just regardless of who you are or what you're doing. There's something there. You wake up every day, you do something, then it can all be documented.
Yeah. You would be astonished. I mean, I spend a lot of time helping people build their brands, and you would be astonished at it's all about stories and it's all about the human connection. And the human connection can't be told unless you share those little stories. And those stories are the ones that help people say, her story is my story. I connect with that. And that's what starts a conversation, which, as you know, leads into business. Business is relationships. Relationships start with story.
Yeah. We just did an episode, actually went live yesterday, about relationship building and the importance of that in your business. Like there's one thing you could do for your business on like, regardless of social media or email, newsletter, whatever it is relationship building. Because you think about any step up you got in business was probably because of a connection or an introduction. We know this to be true. And so important. Okay. So, but there's something really specific I want to talk to you about. Because I know there's listeners that are like, oh, that's great. How do I do this? And most of us are like, chronic procrastinators. And there's so much we can unpack here too, but you actually just shared something on your social. What's your Instagram handle?
It's at the.business.savage.
So go check it out because she just shared something so powerful about procrastination. And I used actually your points from the caption from that Instagram post, which I think is a reel, and I threw it into Claude because I love using AI. Cut and pasted your bio, cut and pasted some of the show notes we did to prep. And I said, hey, based on the summary, can you come up with a few questions for me? Oh, man, I love this stuff. Like, sure, eventually I could have thought about it, but this was like beautifully articulated. I was like, this is great. Massage it, and here we go. But let's talk about procrastination. You share that you have a savage mindset. How does this help you transform situations, especially you or maybe somebody that you coach, into avoiding procrastination or even identifying when someone is procrastinating?
Yeah. I feel like this is literally one of the biggest things that stands in people's way, not just women or female entrepreneurs, but everyone in general. I hear it every single day. And when I talk about a savage mindset, the first piece of that is getting knocked down and the ability to get back up. That's really the definition of it. But the second piece of it is the ability to take action. So I have a little motto that I like to preach. I swear it's going to be the title of my book, and it's called Fire, Aim, Ready. As opposed to most people will live their lives, I got to be ready. I have to feel ready, figure it all out, get over the excuses. Then maybe I'll like dip my toe in the water and start to take a little bit of action. And then maybe if the bowling ball starts to roll down the hill and it picks up that momentum, then all of a sudden, like, I can do the darn thing. Whereas I like to live my life the complete opposite way. And that's what a savage mindset really is about, is like, I'm just going to do the thing. I'm going to claim it. I'm going to manifest it. I'm going to embody it. I'm going to become the type of person that I have to become in order to achieve that. And in that process, I become ready. I like get knocked down and I learn how to get through that, and I learn the skills and I make the connections and I figure it all out. So it's very much about just taking action. And that's one of the biggest things, obviously, that procrastinators are not doing, is they're thinking of every other thing under the sun to distract themselves from the actual action. But if we want to peel that back one layer, because although I do a lot of business coaching, I really geek out on the psychology, the philosophy, and the mindset behind all of this. And so if we really want to actually talk about what's happening behind, like, oh, I'm not ready, it's a deep subconscious fear of what's going to happen if they actually achieve it. So often we don't believe that we're worthy of the thing that we're trying to achieve. And so we want to keep ourselves playing small. We want to keep ourselves in our safe zone. We want to keep ourselves comfortable because it's comfortable, instead of taking the chance and taking the actual action, because we're scared that we might actually do the thing. And so a lot of people are scared of that. They're not ready for that, right? So
doing the thing means that you got to do the thing.
Yeah. Then it's out there. Then you're doing the thing. Yeah. So we hear that a lot, right? We hear the fear, and then we get the excuses. We hear, I have heard, let's bring this in and tell some like real truths. I do a lot of content shoots. So we'll do VIP experiences and we'll have people come in and record a whole day of content and all the things behind that. I've heard the excuse of, I need to lose weight before I'm ready to have a content day to build my brand, to build my business. So give me 6 months so I can lose weight first. But then you come back 6 months later and they're in the exact same position because there was no action taken to get them out of that cycle of self-sabotage. So the excuses will come into play that are just that. They're excuses. They're things that when we can actually identify, oh, that's not true. That isn't true. That's not actually something that's in my way. It's an excuse. And it's my fear that's coming out to protect me.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to identify those excuses. The second thing is that sometimes there's way too much overwhelm between where somebody's at and where they're trying to go. So I want to start a business. I want it to be a 7-figure business, but I'm at $0. Well, 0 to $1 million is a roller coaster, right? There's a lot of ups, there's a lot of downs. It's a beautiful journey, but it's a ride. And so in that, there's such a gap and there's so many steps that it's like analysis paralysis and they just can't take action.
Yep.
And so then we go right back to procrastination habits and procrastination tactics. It's a beautiful journey talking about procrastination. It's probably the number one thing that I see with business owners and trying to help them to their goals.
Oh, yeah. The losing weight thing, I never thought about that too, but I mean, Dan has a really great program.
There we go.
If you want a fitness program, go follow Dan Martell, my husband, and message him the word macros. Telling you, I've seen so much transformation in people. I actually have a girlfriend who decided that she had a lot of weight to release, and she decided to sign up to do a photo shoot this coming March. And she's in the fitness program and she's losing the weight in a very healthy manner. Did you know there's actually like a way to lose weight so that it doesn't leave you with saggy skin if you don't have too much? And so she's like, great, she's losing all this weight. And then she has to pause because she wants her skin to kind of retract. So anyway, sometimes there are reasons, sometimes there are excuses. There's a poster in the gym that I work out at that says, and I think it's a picture of The Rock. It says, you can have reasons or results. You can have excuses or results. What do you choose?
Right.
It's like, there are women in that, there's a group of women in that gym. They got to be in their like late 60s and they're crushing it.
They're doing it. Yeah.
They're doing it.
Yeah.
And like, they're doing it for what their body can handle. And let me tell you, that 80-year-old, 90-year-old version of that woman's going to thank her for showing up that day.
Every version of her and every version that comes after her is going to thank her for doing that.
Procrastination is even getting your butt in the gym. This morning, I was like looking at my calendar thinking, when am I going to go to the gym? I woke up at 4:30 because that's what time Dan wakes up. And I just said, screw this, threw on my shoes and I drove to the gym. I go, like, what was I going to do in that time anyway? I was going to have coffee, read my 10 pages, probably scroll social because I needed to wake up.
Right.
I needed to wake up.
Right.
Guess what wakes you up?
Yeah.
Getting your butt in the gym.
Yeah.
I am so awake.
Action solves a lot. I heard you talk about this the other day. Something happened and you got a call and you had to like turn around. It was on our stories. You had to turn around and you're like, okay, well, that could have been an excuse to not work out. Or I can decide, no. Like I told myself I was going to work out. So how do I still make this possible? Like what's that pivot? Right. That to me,
driving to the gym.
That's a savage mindset.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I was driving to the gym and then I got the text message from the lady who was hosting the event that I was speaking at. And there was a little change in the schedule and I was speaking an hour earlier than anticipated. And then I was like, I can't go to the gym with that drive time, do my workout, and the drive time home wouldn't allow me to really do anything. So I just turned around and went home. We have a home gym. I did what I could in that time. And like, it's not a 10 out of 10 workout, but let's be honest. Like we talk about consistency. We look at like what productivity really is. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's about just putting in whatever reps are available. So my son Noah actually came up with this really cool thing. I was going to teach a college class about personal branding and actually how to create a personal brand to help you land your dream job. And he was like, couldn't fall asleep the night before. And I was like, hey, Noah's 11 years old. And I go, hey, bud, like, explain to me what you think personal branding is. Now, he has an understanding because he lives with Dan and I. He goes, you know what, Mama? He looked at me like, matter of fact, he goes, it's when you have your passion and you take action. I go, boy, did you learn that at school? He goes, no, I just made it up. And that ended up being the theme of what I taught the next day. Because a lot of people have a passion about something. They're passionate about drum lessons, they're passionate about growing their business. But if you're not taking action, the passion is just what it is. And I thought that's so beautiful. But here's where I'm circling on my notes right now is this big word called fear. fear is like the ultimate gatekeeper to people doing stuff. So I know you as a savage are doing these incredible things, right? And you start to take the action. And sometimes we don't know what we don't know until we show up and we're like, oh my God, this is so much more than I anticipated. And you have this fear and dread falls on you. How do you get past that?
So first of all, I want to talk about this for a second because fear is the biggest thing that holds entrepreneurs back. The fear of the unknown, the fear of failure, the fear of success, the fear of all of it that comes with you fill in the blank. It took me a very long time to become okay living in the uncomfortable. And now it's almost like it's my drug. And I get really excited when my whole body is filled with that nervous sensation and you're shaking and, you kind of your mind goes blank for a second because you don't know what's going to come out. And there's this like uncomfortable edge. I call it the edge. It's where you leave the comfortable place and you start to step into something that is not comfortable, something you haven't done before, something that you don't know how it's going to turn out, whether it's a first date or it's stepping onto a stage in front of 5,000 people and you're hoping that you remember what you wanted to say. It's all fear, right? And the same answer of what we were just talking about is how I get through it. It's action. It's action. There's basically a split second where I can say, oh my gosh, I can't do this. That's really scary. What happens if I fall? Well, I know 100% of the time I bet on me. And so I know that even if I fall, I'm going to be okay. I'll be okay. Because at the end of the day, I know that I've got me. And if we want to go even layer than that, a deep layer than that, it talks about self-love and having a really deep connection with yourself and a really deep understanding of yourself. And so I think every single thing, Renee, that I've done in my entire personal and professional career that was exciting or empowering, or people will say that's so inspiring, I was terrified. There was never anything that I did where I was like, oh, I got this. No, I was terrified. I just decided to do it with fear anyways, because I know that everything that I want is on the other side of that fear. And I also know that the majority of people won't take action. And I don't want to be like everybody else.
I have so many people that are like, I have this business idea, but I need you to sign an NDA because I'm like, you can share this publicly on a stage right now. And anybody who has even an ounce of energy to try to replicate your idea won't. Because most people have already had the idea.
Yeah. How many friends?
And they just won't do it.
How many friends do you have that you've heard them say, I'm going to do this thing? I start a podcast. You've probably heard it a million times. I want to start a podcast. I want to start a business. I'm going to move. I'm going to blah, 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 blah. And you follow up with them in 2, 3, 6 months, a year, and they're in the exact same position.
Yeah.
They don't do anything about it. I personally don't surround myself with people like that because that's not inspiring to me. I don't want to be around people like that. But the world is filled with them.
Yeah.
Right. People that won't take action.
Let's throw some love at these people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of listeners. Like you know who you are if you're listening to this, when you're like, God damn it, she's talking to me. That's the point of this show right now. It is for you. And we're not harping on you. We're just saying, like, what do you got to do to start doing the thing you know in your heart and soul you want to do? So let's help these people.
Yeah.
What are the steps to get through this procrastination?
I think so. I'm going to bring in like a little bit of strategy here because one of the things that I actually really like to do is I have this question called, is that true? And I ask myself, is that true? We've all heard of the wonderful term imposter syndrome, which I don't believe is a thing. I think imposter syndrome just means you haven't done it yet. And so it feels scary. You just haven't done the thing yet or enough times yet. Yeah. So I like to do something where I will get every thought, every excuse, every idea out of my head. It's basically a massive whiteboard brain dump, and I get it all out. And then I take a breath and I look at it and I say, well, that's not true. That's also not true. That's an excuse. That's fear. That's a limiting belief. And when you start to remove all of those things out of the way, you realize how many things that are left on the list to actually getting the thing done, whatever it is, that are going to be helpful. That are things that should go into the calendar, that are things that are actionable, that are things that you can actually do to reach the goal. But all of the other things that were on the list, when I get it out of my brain and I see it in front of me, I'm like, dang, look at all of those excuses. And it's okay. Let's allow those thoughts to be there. Let's allow those feelings to be there because they're valid and that came from somewhere and that was trauma and that was an ex-boyfriend who did that to me and this is scary. Let's get it out and let's acknowledge it. And it's almost like, hey, thank you. Thank you for being there and reminding me of the things that I've been through, but I'm not there anymore. I'm not that girl anymore. I'm not that Cassandra anymore. And this Cassandra It's 1% better every single day. I'm sure you've heard that term, or anyone listening has heard the term
all the time.
1% better every single day. And it's literally you harp on this all the time. It's the micro movements. It is the micro movements.
That's it.
You said you wanted to get out of bed at 6, but you snoozed till 6:30. Okay. Like, how do we get back on track? How do we get back on track from that? Give yourself some grace, but let's get back on track from that. Right. So there's a beautiful balance. If you bring in masculine and feminine, there's a beautiful balance and like this dance between discipline and like staying on track with the things that you tell yourself you're going to do, the way you do one thing's the way you do everything. So having this discipline, but then also having grace for yourself because you are a human being and you're going to screw up.
You're going to fall over.
Yeah.
I'm a 6 foot tall, lanky person. I fall over all the time.
5'9", girl. I hear you.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I know that we have like some big T and small t trauma, and I'm actually reading some really cool books around this because of anxiety and like OCD. And I'm like, this is all me. I'm self-diagnosing myself because when they have these like symptoms checkers in these books, I'm like, I got all of these. But okay. Oh my gosh, I just totally lost my train of thought. Oh yes, the big T, little t trauma is that because somebody may have gone through something in their life that is seemingly really terrible and they have emotions around that, somebody can go through something less strenuous and less painful and still have the same level of emotion, right? So you can't unjustify someone's emotions,
right?
But you have to look at yourself and think, what are the things that I experienced in my life that are actually stopping me from doing the work? Because I believe this truly, that God puts people in front of you. God makes you go through events to learn something. And most of the time, that crap that you have to go through is because you are now assigned the work to teach other people how to go through that. And if we can just look at it as like, that was a big crap sandwich, and now I know what to do. And you know what? I'm going to be the voice to teach people how to get through it. It's actually a blessing.
I'm so grateful that you just brought faith into this because that's entirely how I live. And as I look up, it was 2222, which is my faith number.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I live my life. There was a point in my life where I just had to let go and surrender and just give it to God. Why am I fighting? Why am I trying so hard when he has a plan for me? And if I just let go and surrender and let him move in my life and work in my life, bring me the opportunities that are supposed to be there, bring me the challenges that are supposed to be there, I wouldn't have built 7-figure businesses if I hadn't gone through half of the things that I had gone through. And now looking back, grateful for them. Leaving a 10-year relationship because he was unfaithful, that was really hard. And at the time, it's really easy to fall into victimhood. Why me? I could have done this. I screwed up that, XYZ. Or I can look back and say, thank you. Thank you. Because I wouldn't have done half the things that I've done now if it wasn't for that experience. And so I think a lot of it, big T, little t, you don't go through somebody else's life. You don't walk in their shoes. You don't look at life through their lens. So I don't know what someone else is experiencing. I know what I'm experiencing. And I think that it really just requires you to have the ability to say, I can choose to look at this as an opportunity and it's a stepping stone to get me to that next level, or I'm a victim in this. I want to stay a victim in this. I'm going to tell myself a lot of self-sabotaging stories and I want to stay in this cycle. And then I want to compare to everyone on social media who has the life that I want, that I could have if I just stopped staying in this victim mindset. But I'm going to stay here because it feels really good.
Okay. Perfect segue to something my spiritual therapist just taught me. She's like, and I think I've shared this on the show before, but question for you. Do you know the difference between a monk and somebody who's unhoused?
I do not.
So the difference is that someone who is enlightened can actually have a thought like a cloud come into their mind, but they can also release it. Right? So somebody who is the victim, and often people that are living on the streets have these thoughts that come into their mind and they stay there and they just fester. And now this becomes who they are. It becomes their identity. But if they actually released it, they would know that they are way more than that, because we're all light, we're all love, we all have the possibility within us. And I thought that was so beautiful.
Yeah,
that was like my biggest aha, and like, not to shame anybody's circumstances whatsoever, but every single person has the possibility to live an abundant life.
Yeah. I mean, I have I don't want to get too specific, but I have 2 different clients that have both lost daughters. Similar ages, they lost their daughters. And it's wild. One of them I've been working with for almost 2 years. I've been able to help her with very little movement in her business because it just comes up every session, and it's an excuse, and it's holding her back, and it's a fear. And I've never lost a daughter. I've never lost a child. So I can't imagine. But I do know that I have another client who also lost a daughter, who uses it as her fuel, as her story, as I'm going to build this legacy because of her. And like, this was the mission that God put me on this earth to do, was to be her mother. And we finished our soul contract. So now she's gone back to heaven, and I'm here, and I've got my mission. And so I need to help. I need your help to do this. And so it's really just like how you choose to look at the situation that you're in. And as I'm saying this, Renee, I know you and I have done a lot of this work. So if the person listening to this hasn't, like, it's one step at a time. Like, you will get there, but it's one step at a time, and just having faith that if you keep on going, you will get there.
Yeah. They say the last mile is never crowded because most people aren't willing to go that far.
Yeah.
But all, like, our friends are all in that last mile, and we got blisters on our feet, but we can see the finish line. And that's just one finish line. There's multiple finish lines. Okay. So back to procrastination, because it's super relevant to this. Is there actually a time when it serves us? And how do we distinguish between a healthy pause and harmful avoidance?
Yeah. Do you know much about human design?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm a human design coach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know a lot more than I do.
I know.
You know a lot more than I do. So I'm a generator. We tune very well into our intuition. And so my response to this may be a little bit different than some others, because I can tune very deeply into my intuition, which is that gut instant response that is an instant yes, or I normally would say it's a full F yes or a full F no, right? That response. And I think, yes, there's definitely a time when you may be jumping at something out of excitement without actually thinking it through. So here's what I do. Here's what I do anytime I'm making one of these decisions, is I play it through all the way through to the end. If I take on that client, let's play that through to the end, like the wildest dream, the wild show, the wildest dream. Let's play that all the way through to the end. What could be possible? Okay. Does that still feel good? Okay. Does that feel true to Cassandra? Not to what Instagram is going to think, not to what my partner is going to think, not to what my parents are going to think. Does that feel true to me, to my mission, to what feels good for me? Yes. Okay. Then we lean in. We lean in. But I also think that there's a time where people will act, and this is where it comes down to the ability of know thyself. Know when you're saying yes to something that you really should be saying no to. Know when it's because of what other people want you to do, or society wants you to do, or Cassandra on Instagram or Renee on Instagram are doing these things, so I should be doing these things, but really you shouldn't, because you don't know yourself well enough to know if that's something that you even want. And then there's a season. I'm in a season right now that's actually rest, and yet it's the most profitable season I've had. So like, let's say that again and just bring it in for a moment. It's the most profitable season I've had, but it's also my season of rest. I am the queen of, I don't have a jam-packed back-to-back schedule. Let me just add something else on my plate. Let me just take on another launch. Let me just speak at another event. Let me just take another trip. Let me just add on another client. Because I'm not absolutely going wazoo crazy and I can sleep for 8 hours a day. Let me just make my life a little bit more chaotic. I specifically am waiting to release a new program to the new year, even though I'm ready right now to release it, because I want to enjoy this season of pause.
Yeah.
I'm ready to sit back and absorb what I've built and take trips like I've been doing a lot recently, and just really feel the effects of who I've become and what I've built and enjoy it. Yeah. And so there's no procrastination. I'm not procrastinating.
The point of what you're building is so that you can enjoy this. Cal Newport says it best, is that they've actually done studies where creatives in the world can't actually be productive in terms of creativity for more than 57-minute intervals. So to expect some people to go and work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, to produce ultimate results is stupid. These could be engineers, writers, you name it. So they say to work for an hour and then take a break. But also that translates into evenings off. Like if you distinguish that 5 p.m. is when I'm going to close my laptop, no work happens, you have to check out.
Yeah.
Because where do we get our best ideas? In the shower, when we're running, when we're driving. Why? Because we're not focusing on anything, and allows our brain to rest and then just kind of go through the process. You kind of have to dump it. When I drive my kids to school, we'll sometimes play music, but the moment that I drop my last kid off and I go to the studio or wherever, there's hardly anything ever playing. I will talk to myself the whole time.
Yep.
I will talk through emails I have to send. I will talk through strategy and stuff that we're working on. And let me tell you, it's like the best therapy. Talking to yourself, you let it all out.
It surprises a lot of people. I drive from Texas back to Canada quite often, 26-hour drive. And
drive?
All the time. I love my Jeep, my dogs get me on the road. I'm a happy girl.
Oh my God.
But the interesting thing is people say, how many podcasts did you listen to? Or, what do you do? Aren't you bored? I said, how could I be bored? I'm with me. I'm hanging out with me. I don't listen to podcasts. I barely ever listen to music. I just think. I allow that feminine creativity to flow through me. I have a notepad on the seat beside me, and I just think.
They say Sarah Blakely used to live like 5 or 10 minute drive from the office, but she would take the long way there, and it would take her 45 minutes to get there for this exact reason. It's like a dedicated time alone in solitude to do whatever the heck you want. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, because you're a savage, what are your personal indicators that you're successfully operating from your savage mindset versus playing small?
It's scary. My biggest thing is, does that scare me? It's oh crap moments. Let's replace it. We'll call it oh crap moments.
What's a recent oh crap moment?
Probably the next stage that I'm standing on. The next program that I'm building feels like another one too. I still don't know what it looks like, but I'm ready. I'm going to do it. Yeah, probably the next stage that I'm standing on. It's a big stage. And it's funny because it's in front of a whole bunch of financial advisors, and I don't teach anything to do with finance. And so, it's imposter syndrome comes up, and what am I going to teach them? What are they going to learn from me? It's an oh crap moment. And the biggest indicator for me is it scary? Is it scary? Does it feel really scary? And does it feel bigger than the version of me last year? Is it something, here's a small strategy. I actually, at the beginning of every single new journal, I will write at the beginning of the journal where I was in my career. So CRIPES, career, relationships, intellect, physical, emotional, and spiritual. I write where I'm at in each one of those categories of my life. And so it's like a marker for me. When I'm finished the journal, I'll come back to it and I can say, wow, you think you didn't make much progress, but look at the big things that you accomplished and look at where you were at the beginning of last journal. And so for me, it's fear. As long as it feels like it's really, really scary, then it's usually a pretty good indicator that I'm on the right track.
So where do you often play small?
I love that you just asked me that question and I couldn't answer it right away, which means I feel like I constantly am playing big. I think I play small in my relationship. I think I'm still playing small in my romantic relationship in terms of how I can continue to still be a bigger, better partner.
We all have those parts in our life too.
Yeah.
Apologies if my video is delayed or frozen.
You're okay. You're okay.
It'll come back alive. And I appreciate you for saying that. And what are you doing to start playing bigger there?
Yeah, we just actually had a really beautiful weekend away at a cabin. We spent some time together and a lot of really challenging conversations came up for us. I think for me, it's allowing myself to not allow past experiences and past traumas, quote unquote, from old relationships to carry over into this one. And so for me, I'm a very aware person, and it's giving him the permission to call me out. It's giving him the permission to allow me to take ownership and to say the words, I'm sorry, and not always having to be right.
Let me tell you, when you can be so vulnerable with some of the most important people in your life, it creates liberties and freedoms in so many other areas. Like 2 weekends ago, my husband and I did a little mini retreat at our place up on the mountain here. And I just felt so safe to share something that was so vulnerable for me, that it was like this release, like a dam letting go of all the water and all that pressure.
Yeah.
And it was exhausting afterwards too. I feel like I'm just coming out of it too. But it's like now I put this trust and faith in our relationship that I know it's there to catch me if something were to happen. It's almost like that it's going to launch me into another direction and launch me into another stratosphere, because I feel like I have that support at home in my personal life.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful. But I couldn't achieve that if Dan and I weren't doing this work. And we do this work all the time. We have a book club between him and I where we read the same book and it's mostly about relationship stuff. And then we come together once a week and we go review the chapter and we review the stuff we highlighted and the questions that we asked each other.
Yeah.
Like we put all this work into our business, assuming that when we get home at the end of the day, everyone's going to be there, right? And like everything's going to be perfect. And that's just not always the case.
Yeah.
Oh,
It all requires work.
everything.
I would love to just add to that. And you probably have some context for this too. Someone may hear this and not understand what this is. So, can have an offline conversation as well. But we talk about masculine and feminine energy so much, not just in relationships, but in business. And I just want to touch on this for 1 second, because so often women in business are leading from our masculine energy. We're the doers. We have to be doing more. We are, organizing the business. We're building something, and we're put so heavily into our masculine energy. And so the analogy that I like to bring with this is that women are supposed to be in our feminine creativity. We're supposed to be able to tap into that. But the water inside of a river, if we want to think of a river as the analogy of the perfect balance of masculine and feminine, the water cannot flow down that river in her essence and dodging the rocks and just so eloquently and beautifully without the structure of the masculine riverbeds to guide her and direct her on where to go. Because without those walls, that water wouldn't be flowing at all. It would actually just be a puddle. And so I bring that in because I have predominantly so long for most of my life a competitive hockey player. I played boys hockey. I was told I was the son my dad never had, even though we have a younger brother. I have a younger brother. I lived in my masculine energy for most of my life. And that carried me through to a lot of success in business until it led me to burnout and put me in the hospital. And it led me to some really unhealthy relationships. And I was constantly in my masculine. And so to answer your question from a minute ago, how am I challenging myself, is really allowing myself to lean on my partner to hold the masculine energy and challenging myself to feel safe and supported in the feminine.
I love that. And we talk about this a lot too. There are moments, especially as entrepreneurs, where we got to dip into that masculine.
Oh,
but to grind in that state all time, no way.
Yeah. Burnout.
And there's people that I admire online, these women that I've had the honor of meeting. And I'm not going to say names, but we see them as very masculine. But to meet them off the camera, it's like they're actually very sweet as well, but they won't share that because they're maintaining this identity. But it's tough. It's tough because we probably think, what percentage of us needs to show up in that masculine and the feminine, and where, with who? Like in the boardroom, if we're trying to close a deal to raise money for our startup, can we be in the feminine?
Right. Which is why I think that there's such a beautiful conversation and balance around it. Because I hear a lot of women say, women shouldn't be in such a healthy masculine. They need to be in their feminine and flow and let it come to them and opportunities. And I'm like, no, I had to be in my masculine to set up the systems and the structure and the automations and be the shark who is ready to close those deals and take the big chances so that now I can chill, so that now I can enjoy it, so that now I can tap into my creativity and allow that feminine energy to flow. So I think it's really about, the feminine won't come out to play when she doesn't feel safe. And so there's a lot to be said in a moment where a woman needs to step up and, tap into that masculine quote unquote energy versus if you choose the right business partners, if you choose the right romantic partners, if you have the systems and the team in place in your business, then you get to enjoy the beauty that's created in the feminine.
Oh, I love it. And it's so true. Yeah. Some compliments I get for people becoming a guest on my show is just how it seems so organized. But also it helps me stay organized in that I'm getting the right information at the right time. But then the experience for the guest is also great. So they're prepared. They show up. They know the expectations of being a guest on the show.
Perfect example. First of all, yes, you do provide a phenomenal experience. So thank you. But you also, that's a perfect example. You hold the masculine. You hold the masculine, you set the expectations. This is what I need from you. I will not do this if it's X, Y, and Z. Now you get to show up and just talk. You get to show up and do you because I've got you. I've got all of the masculine handled.
Yep. I love it. Yeah. That's true. And that only took, I don't know, the better part of an hour and a half to just set up the flow to connect everything. Now I am technically inclined, so I can't compare myself to people that would not have a clue. But now it's because that's taken care of, and it was a Sunday morning, didn't feel like doing it, needed to get it done. now I can do what I'm really good at because that's already just automated, no big deal, intake forms, scheduled, expectations. And it was just like we have a PDF of what it's like to be a guest on the show.
You read it.
Yeah. So every time we show up, we like add a little bit more to the process to make it seamless for everybody because like I value your time so much too. I want to make sure you show up the fullest, best potential of Cassandra and that I'm ready. Because some days I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I feel that. It makes for a beautiful experience for everyone. And it's this small example, but it's such a testament to seeing through the entire process of anything that you do in business and how can I make this easier for myself? Like doing the same thing over and over and over again on repeat, it's exhausting. It leads to burnout. At what point do you decide to take off that hat and either hire somebody, like delegate, or set a system and an automation so that you don't have to keep on doing that? I say if I've done something 3 times, it should be delegated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I drive my kids to school like 5 times a week.
Okay.
So. I'm just joking. Our house manager does 2 mornings, which is super helpful. Okay. I absolutely love this conversation. But I do have one last question for you.
Great. Let's do it.
When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that to you?
Oh, you have no idea how timely this question is for me. I just finished running a Wild Woman Rising retreat that we hosted. Yeah. And so for me, wild is the untamed, unfiltered, unapologetic that lives inside of every single one of you. And it is allowing her a chance to be seen, be held, and be expressed.
You did not practice that at all. You've never said that before.
It's our tagline for the retreat. You can take it.
So this was all planned. See, God's timing. It was perfect. Okay, so if people want to go online to find you, where can they go?
Yeah, so Instagram's great at the.business.savage, www.thebusinesssavage.com. And then, of course, we have our podcast, The Business Savage.
Love it. Cassandra, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.